Hi, I'm Bob Trask, and this is our weekly reset. Today, we're going to talk about finding safety in an unsafe world. Now, that's one topic, but I think I could change it a little. I could say, don't ever, ever, ever be safe. Don't ever play it safe. Because if you play it safe, you're actually in a state of security. Ooh, it's nice and secure. I'll tell you another place that's nice and secure, really secure. Nothing can hurt you, and that's a coffin. And when we play it safe, we might as well be in a coffin. Because this world is not about safety. This world isn't about being safe. This safety is an illusion. There's no safety in this world. The air we're breathing oftentimes isn't safe. When you get in a car and drive along a highway or a freeway, boy, that's not safe. It always kind of amazes me that here in America, I can't remember wherever country you're in, I'm not sure about that, but here in America, we have these cars that go 70, 80, 100 miles an hour, and they go by each other on the freeways, and sometimes they go by each other only feet apart. And sometimes on a two-lane road, they go by each other even closer. And when people pass each other, they pass and then they come back in. Whew. And the number of actual fatalities or traffic accidents relative to that is amazing. And why is it so amazing to me? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the people in this country, at least 50% of them are pretty stupid. Pardon my saying that, but it doesn't affect you. I'm not referring to you. But there are people in this country who are pretty stupid. Maybe I should say ignorant, not stupid. They're ignorant. They don't know what they don't know. And those people with very little real training now have this automobile that weighs 2,000 pounds and it's hurtling down the highway right next to these other cars doing 70 or 80 miles an hour, and yet it's safe. Why is it safe? Why is that safe? And is safety, what are we feeling unsafe? What is that? Is it climate change? Climate change makes us feel unsafe, or is it the possibility of war, maybe nuclear war? Does that make us feel unsafe? How about robberies or earthquakes or hurricanes or tornadoes or diseases? Do those all make us feel unsafe? But see, here's the thing. Those fears aren't real. They aren't relative to what's really going on, are they? Like, here's two people, and one of them is really terrified of what's going on, and the other person isn't terrified of what's going on. And if what's going on, it's going on. It's the same event, but there's two different people. And one of them is just, and the other one's going, hey, it'll be all right. So fear is not really comes from the event, does it? Doesn't come from the event, doesn't come from what's going on. It's inside of me. I'm afraid. How do I? So, okay, Bob, so I'm afraid and I don't want to be afraid. So, how do I get over being afraid? Let's talk about that. Not taking a risk is the most unsafe thing I can do. Not taking a risk is the most unsafe thing I can do, because what happens to me is that I begin to become weak. That muscle inside of me of taking a risk and winning and taking a risk and winning and taking a risk and winning. I don't take any risks anymore, and then I don't win anymore. And if I don't win anymore, that sense of confidence that is born inside of me begins to just crumble and die. I can't be confident. You can't be confident. So I'm asking you to consider this today. I'm asking you to consider that taking a risk is the most important thing you can do. And you'll win. And you'll win every time. Every time? Wait a minute. Yeah, you'll win all the time. If you take a risk, And incidentally, you have to back up just for a minute. When you take a risk, you have to take it with faith, don't you? Have to take it with faith. Have to take it with trust. Trust is the same thing as faith, incidentally. Have to take it with faith. Have to trust that something's got my back. What's got my back? Okay, let me tell you this story, and maybe you've heard it before, but stick with me. I was a captaining a boat, a 100-foot vessel down into the Sea of Cortez, and a hurricane came. And we got into this hurricane, and I, being a very good captain, I had 5 different things that I was going to do when the hurricane came, because I knew the hurricane was coming. I'd been running from it. That's how I got into this harbor. So I knew it would come, and I knew it would hit us. And I said, first I'll do this, and if that doesn't work, I'll do this, and if that doesn't work, I'll do this. If that doesn't work, I'll do this. If that doesn't work, I'll do this. Certainly, I can have safety. Capital S, safety, safety, safety. I can certainly be safe. I can keep my crew and my passengers safe and my vessel safe. All of those 5 safety valves, all those 5 safety things, the dock I was going to tie up to, the harbor I was going to go into, all of those things blew away in the first half hour of the storm. In the first half hour, they were all gone. Now my there's these giant waves, like 60, 80-foot waves rolling in toward the shore, and we're in this little vessel, and we're starting to roll sideways down those waves. It's only a matter of time before we flip over. It's only a matter of time till it's all done. Now, I wasn't afraid for my life. I wasn't afraid for my life because I had a crew and passengers on board, and the passengers and the crew, because I was the captain, if I didn't make something good happen, they were all going to die. And I looked up and I said, "Oh God, please help me." But at that moment, in that moment of clarity, when my ego was gone, my ego was blown away with the wind, 165 knot winds, boom, 200-mile-an-hour winds. My ego was gone. I was like a little kid. When I looked up and said, "Please help me," I was completely empty. And I said, "Please help me." And the most amazing thing happened. When I recognized and realized, finally, that the God I was praying to isn't God. That's not God. This guy in the sky is not God. It's and Moses came down off the mountain, and he had these tablets, and on those were the 10 Commandments, right? 10 Commandments. Do these things and you're going to be cool. You're going to be safe. That was really what the 10 Commandments were. It was about living a safe life and keeping your neighbors safe. It wasn't about going to heaven. It was about having a community that was safe. And the first of those commandments, the first, number 1, was, "I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me." He didn't see a guy in a robe. He didn't see some dude with a staff and long hair and a beard shaking his finger at him. Well, he was in nature. He was going on a spirit quest. He was feeling the power of nature, nature with a capital N. That's God. That's the presence, the power, the great river of grace and wisdom that's flowing through us and flowing through you right now. Right now. Flowing through you and through me. That's where we came from. That's what we're going back to after this life. We are divine. We are sacred. And in that moment, I realized that when I was a boy, the elders in this Indian pueblo taught me that God is a great spirit, and it's in all things. It's in everything. It's in the rocks. It's the trees. It's not only in them. It is them. It's everything. Everything that is God. Everything is, and it's all movement, and it's all flowing, and it's all conscious. And at that moment, when I looked up and said, "Oh God, please help me," and that God dissolved. That image of that God dissolved, was gone. When it was gone, please hear me, when it was gone, I was suddenly surrounded and filled with a presence. The interesting thing is, presence had been with me my entire life, and I didn't know it because I wasn't focused on it. It's like if you're sitting on a park bench reading a book, and somebody comes and sits down beside you, and you don't even know they're there because you're focused on the book. And then suddenly they say something, and you go, "Whoa," because you didn't know they were there. I didn't know the Holy Spirit, Great Spirit, was around me. I didn't know I was being loved and protected. I didn't know I was safe. Now that wonderful presence spoke to me in thoughts in my mind, and I followed those thoughts in my mind, and we saved the ship, we saved the boat, we saved all the lives. It was all done. It was perfect. That was really, really cool because we were safe. We weren't safe because we didn't take risks. What I did right after that was more risking than any risk I've ever taken as a sea captain. The things what I did were just unbelievable, but I wasn't doing them out of my brain. I was following the wisdom of centuries, the wisdom of eternity, the wisdom of Holy Spirit, the wisdom of grace, the wisdom of the great presence, the one that is all things. I was following that. I was out of my way and following that. And I was doing things that you really shouldn't be doing on a boat, but we saved everybody and we saved the boat. And all of the vessels around us, incidentally, all sank, and we were watching people in the water. We couldn't get to them, and they all sank, and there was nothing that we could do. Robert Collier said, playing safe is probably the most unsafe thing in the world. You cannot stand still. You must go forward. And John Kennedy, one of my heroes, I'm sorry if he wasn't yours, but definitely one of mine, said, we're not here to curse the darkness, but to light the candle that can guide us through the darkness to a safe and sane future. My life and your life cannot be lived in fear. We can't. It can't be lived in anxiety. You're special. My gosh, you're so special. You're so unique, you're so individual, you're so different. And the light that's flowing through you right now, the grace of the great one that people call God, that grace flowing through you right now is yours individually and unique. You're like a prism hanging in the window and the sun shining through it. And what's coming out is this spray of colors. There's no other prism in all of history that's like that. They may come from the same factory, but none of them are going to do the same thing. None of them. Because every single thing is unique and individual. And you are unique and individual. And the light that shines through you, no other person has that light. No other person has that expression. No other person is you. Only you can do that. And in order to do that, you have to be willing to step out. I don't want you to go to the end of your life and then on your tombstone it says, she always played it safe. So we can't do that. We've got to reach out. We've got to make our lives work. We've got to make our lives happen. Grace Hopper said, a ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. And you're not built for that. And I'm not built for that. Safe harbor is like it's got to be a state of mind, doesn't it? Safety has to be a state of mind, like I am safe. And then you go forward and live your life and you take little risks and you make new things happen. But you've got to be willing to go forward and take those risks. Okay, so I keep saying you'll win all the time. So So now you're going to take a risk. I always use this metaphor of baking a cake. It's because that's because I like cake. But let's just use that metaphor for a minute. So I say, go take a risk. So you're going to bake a cake. You're going to bake a chocolate cake. So you're going to bake this chocolate cake, and then you think to yourself, God, it's just going to be spongy cake. It's just going to, I wish there something else in there. So you grind up some walnuts and throw it in there and mix that in. And then you think for a little bit, what else could I put in there? I could put a little bit of fruit in there. Wow, I've got some dates here. I could just chop up some dates and put, I'm not sure how that would work. I'm not sure how that would work, but let's see how that would work. Okay, not too many dates. Chop those up and put them in there. Mix that all in. Now it's going to be a little bit more moist. So now maybe the cake's going to be a little dry, a little more moist, but it can't be too moist because I don't want it to be gushy. So, okay, so I'm going to do something else. So when I finally get through, now this doesn't resemble a chocolate cake at all. So, God, I've really messed it up. I've done, but it's all been stuff that's occurred to me. Wow, what if I did this? Whoa, wow, what if I did this? What if we lived our life like that? Wow, what if I did this? Wow, what if I did this? Oh my gosh, I could do this. I could do this. Oh, but it might not be safe. Okay, I don't care if it's safe. I'm going to do it anyway. What happens is that eventually, let's go back to the cake just for a minute. So we bake the cake. We taste it. I like it. Somebody else tastes it and they go, "What did you do? Oh my God." You say, "Well, wait a minute. Don't just throw out the cake. Think about it. I put some dates in it. I put some nuts in it. I put some raisin. You talk about stuff." And they said, "Yeah, but it's supposed to be chocolate because they're living inside of their little bubble that says, I'm eating a chocolate cake and it's supposed to taste just like chocolate. No, you got all this other stuff in there. And I'm living inside my bubble. So there I don't like it because it doesn't fit inside my bubble." Fine, fine, let them go. But even if the cake didn't turn out, would you say that you won? That cake didn't turn out, and maybe it fell. It's a mess. Did you win? Yeah, you won because you stepped outside of your comfort zone. You stepped outside of that little tiny box that we all tend to live in. You stepped outside of that and you became who you came here to be. We're creators by our nature. We're creators by our nature. We do things. You do things. Oh my gosh, the things that you do. The things that you can create. I can't create the things you can create because your prism is different than mine. Only you can do what only you could create that. Only you can make that cake. If you're willing, if you're willing to fail, you gotta be willing to fail. So what keeps us locked in our little box is fear. Let me talk just for a quick second about fear. You have to make a decision. What's more important? Your vision? Because we have to visualize, right? We have to visualize. If we're not visualizing, hey, I'm asking you right now, do you have a vision for your life? Do you have a vision for next week or next month? Are you visualizing where you want to go and how you want to get there? When you get ready to go out and get in the car and you can put your keys in and start it up and you start going, do you know where you're going? Of course you do. You have a vision. You know where you're going. In life, do you know where you're going today, tomorrow, next week? Do you know where you're going? Because if you don't know where you're going, if you don't have that vision, then you're just drifting around in circles. And a lot of us are drifting around in circles. And what are we doing when we're drifting around in circles? We're trying to be safe. So the cake didn't turn out. So the cake's a mess. But you won. You won. You got there. Now, is every risk that you take a good risk? No, because you have to not only have a vision, but you have to also consider other people in your life. Let me give you an example. So I was working in Malaysia and in a lot of those areas, and I had a week off, and so I decided I would go over to Borneo, and there was a hotel right on the beach, really nice hotel on the beach. So I just checked into that hotel, and I was going to spend a week in that hotel just relaxing. So I went out to the pool. It was a nice pool. It was a nice beach. But after a few days it got kind of boring. And so I looked across the street and there was the Borneo jungle just across the street. I think when I say street, I should say road because it's not like a street, it's just a road. And I looked across the road and there's this Borneo jungle. So I went in, got myself fixed up, put on my heavier shoes and my pants, went out and went across and started to go. And the maitre d' said, "Hold on, wait a minute, what are you doing?" I said, I'm going to go over into the jungle. He said, no, you can't go into the jungle. I said, I can't. Was it private? He said, no, but it's dangerous. You can't go in there. And I said, but I want to go in. He said, I'm telling you, you can't go in there. And he wasn't going to let me go in. So I said, okay. So I went back into the hotel, walked through the hotel, up the beach a little ways, came back out through the brush and came up to the road and walked across the road. And when I went across the road, when I started into the so-called jungle, there's these bushes that have spines and on like that. And I'm fighting my way through these, and I'm just getting all ripped and torn and thinking, God, no wonder it's dangerous. But then I'd gone far enough in, I thought, well, I'll take a few more steps. I took a few more steps and I came out of that into this glorious place. What I didn't ever realize what that a real jungle was like. But the trees were so tall that they shaded out and they formed a canopy. The sky was now a green, just green with the beautiful leaves. And from those trees were hanging long vines like we used to see in the Tarzan movies. And the country was just open and rolling hills. And I thought, oh, this is incredible. So I started walking and I walked and I realized that there are, king cobras and maybe tigers and other things in there, but I wasn't concerned about that. I just kept going because I was taking a risk. I was outside my comfort zone. I was taking a risk and it was something new and it was exciting to me and it was adventurous. And I came to this like a ravine and I had to get across the ravine. So I got a hold of the vine and I got back and I ran. And of course it wasn't Tarzan was a lot smarter than I am. Let's face it. So the vine took me halfway across the ravine and it stopped. So now I'm hanging halfway across the ravine. So I let go and fell, but it was just soft sand in the bottom, so I was fine. And I got up and climbed up the other side and went on my hike. And then when it got toward evening, I thought I better get back to the hotel. So I came back to it wasn't the same ravine, obviously, and dropped down into the ravine, crossed the car, and I'm climbing up the other side, and I can't quite get over the ledge, but there's a tree growing out of the side. So I reach over and there's an opening in the tree and I stick my hand in the tree in the opening and I pull myself up. Well, in that opening was a nest of bees and they're like killer bees. And they came out of there like dust, this thick. And so, and they're all over me and they're stinging. And I have a certain bee allergy. So I thought, well, this could be interesting. So I take off running and I'm running as fast as I can. And fortunately, I have big hands and I'm swatting bees and just knocking bees off. And I finally ran far enough that they all went back to their nest or they died or whatever they did. But I was finally free of the bees. And then I stopped and I thought, well, if I'm going to have an anaphylactic reaction, might as well have it here. So I just sat down and waited, but nothing happened. I didn't have an anaphylactic reaction. So I said, okay, I better get back to the hotel. Well, I had no idea where I was, and I had no idea where the hotel was. But a few days later, I'd gone to an Indian village, and the chief had taken me up into the um, longhouse, and we'd spent some really precious time there. And he gave me a dart gun, a blowgun, and 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 toward evening, I heard these drums playing, and I said, "Why are these drums playing?" And he said, well, "Our warriors go out into the forest, into the jungle, hunt." And he said, toward evening, we play the drums so they know how to get back, so they can follow themselves back. So I'm sitting there wondering, what the heck am I going to do? Because I'm totally lost. And then I heard the drums playing and I knew where the village was compared to the hotel. So I just took off in the direction I wanted, came out right out at the hotel, and it was perfect. And I went into the ocean and I just soaked in the wet in salt water to make sure I got as much of the bee venom as I could and the stingers out. And then I went and took a shower and changed clothes. And I sat down and I called Mary. She said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Great. I just had the most incredible adventure." And so I told her the adventure and she was silent. And when I said, "What?" She was then and is still so angry at me, so angry over that, because she said, "You could have died out there. We have no one would have ever known even what." So I realized, I recognized, maybe for the first time, that I can't take risks just considering me. If I'm going to take a risk, I have to consider the other people who love me and the people in my life before I take that risk, because they're taking a risk too. I'm taking their risk for them. So we have to be careful about that, don't we? We can't take stupid risks, but we can't be safe. You only live once. You only live. Let's not have our tombstone read played it safe. So the comfort, oh, the inexpressible comfort of feeling safe with a person, because that's another kind of safety, isn't it? So those people that you feel safe with, be with them because they allow you to expand. And when you take a risk, like the risk through the hurricane, or the risk free diving with sharks, or the risk going into the jungle, or all the risk stories that you could tell me, when you take those risks and then you own the win, you said, "I did that. That's now part of me." Like that Borneo jungle is now part of me. And the deep sea where I was free diving, that's now a part of me. It's inside of me. That's called confidence. Those stories build self confidence. And then you're able to do more. You're able to take greater risks. But every risk has to have an equal part. I want to go back to that because I want to make sure we understand. Every time I take a risk, I have to have an equal part of faith. And if that faith is not there, then we're not paying attention to life itself, because life itself is alive. It's an intelligence. It's not just a beating heart, it's an intelligence that makes the heart beat. It's a wisdom, it's a power, it's a grace, it's a flow of intelligent energy, of energetic intelligence. And it's you, and it's flowing into you right now, right now, right now, right now. And if you will acknowledge that, then everything that comes from you in terms of an urgency to do something, God, I really need to create this, or I really need to go see this person, or I really need to do this. And if a little bit of fear comes up in that, that fear is there because it's energy. Fear is energy. That little bit of fear comes up there to impel you, to move you forward out of where you are. Use the energy, use the fear, and take the risk. Move outside of your comfort zone and trust that the universe, this blessed universe, which is God, has your back. The Desiderata used to say, "I am a child of the universe. No less than the trees and the stars, I have a right to be here." You're sacred. You are sacred. You are so special. Allow the light to flow through you. Don't bottle it up. Let it come out. Take risk. Do things that seem unsafe. Just little ones, just tiny ones. If you don't want to bake a cake, just make a cupcake. Just make a cookie. You don't have to make a big risk. The little risks, bigger risk, bigger risk, bigger risk, and you're becoming who you came here to be. So let's go forward this week and take some risks. Let's find out ways that we can step outside of our comfort zone. Let's not let fear make our choices for us. Let's not let fear decide for us who we are. Thank you for being with me. please go to bobtrask.com and leave a donation. bobtrask.com website, leave a donation. Boy, I appreciate it. Thank you. Help me do my work in the world. If you're with me on YouTube, please have other people come and watch these things on YouTube because it's good for the soul. Thank you. I'll see you next week.